take a deep breath in, and as you begin to settle into this moment, allowing yourself to notice that sense of deep relaxation, perhaps you can begin to realize that change is often simpler than most people think. It's as though the very act of noticing a pattern already begins to unlock the potential to transform it. It's almost as if patterns themselves have a certain fluidity, a natural bend towards change. When you see them, they begin to shift effortlessly, almost as if they're already ready to evolve in the most powerful ways. And it's interesting to think about how patterns, once seen, invite action, don't they? It's almost as if recognition itself is the key that unlocks the door to unlimited possibility. Patterns, after all, they're just ways that things happen. And once you notice how something works, doesn't it feel like you have the ability to choose how it will evolve from here? Notice how insight brings a natural sense of control. And even more, it brings a sense of power that seems to arise from within you. You see, every pattern is made of pieces, parts, steps, sequences. And when you recognize them, it's as though you suddenly have the manual to how they function. And when you understand how something works, then isn't it easy to shift those pieces? Just imagine, how you can rearrange the parts, reframe the sequence, even change the rhythm, almost like a master conductor orchestrating the most magnificent symphony. And now you've noticed how easily you can change a pattern. You might begin to wonder, what happens when you intentionally choose to influence those patterns? What happens when you inject a shift into the flow, gently, effortlessly? So every piece begins to harmonize differently, in ways you can't even fully predict, but know will create exactly the results that you want. In fact, the more you think about it, the more you can feel how deeply connected recognize a pattern is to changing it. The moment you see a pattern, you already have within you the skill to create change with that pattern. Isn't that fascinating? And perhaps as you reflect on this, you might notice that beliefs themselves are just another kind of pattern. And just like any pattern, beliefs can shift, bend, grow, and change. Imagine what it would feel like to fully believe that once you recognize a pattern, you can influence it, not just in small ways, but in ways that are so profound, so deep, they become a part of your very experience. And as you begin to realize this, something wonderful happens. You begin to automatically notice patterns in places you might never have looked before. And in those places, you can inject change with ease and confidence. Isn't it interesting to think every pattern, whether it's in behavior, thinking, emotions, or action, has a flexibility built right into it? It's almost like discovering a river when you really observe it. It's not as rigid as it appears. Instead, it adapts, it shifts, it moves in ways that seem to allow for a constant flow of change. Much like your own ability to recognize and transform patterns right now in this moment. Now just imagine what would happen when you align with the natural flow of change. Imagine with every pattern you recognize, you can effortlessly choose to change it. Imagine that change becomes so natural, so automatic. You don't even need to consciously think about it. Because your beliefs about change, they've already shifted to a place where it's simply a part of you. When that happens, don't you think your ability to inject change into any pattern at any moment becomes limitless? Isn't it remarkable that beliefs themselves, the very fabric of your experience, can be transformed, just like any other pattern, when you choose to see the truth of what's possible? Belief in change becomes change itself. When you believe that you can shift the course of any pattern, doesn't that belief itself seem to grow stronger, more powerful, until it becomes second nature? So, at any time, in any situation, with just a thought, you recognize a pattern and feel a shift begin. So gently, so easily. It almost feels as if the world is shifting in unison with you. So much as if, by simply embracing this one belief, that change is possible the moment you see a pattern, you become someone who can easily, effortlessly influence not just your own patterns, but the patterns of those around you, with such grace and fluidity. It feels like it's always been this way, always been waiting for your reach. Because you know, don't you, that this is not just a theory or a concept. This is something you can live, breathe, experience. Recognizing patterns and injecting change. It's no longer an abstract idea. It becomes the very core of your power. A power that works in ways that are so subtle, yet so profound. It's as if every interaction with a pattern magically brings about the exact result that you desire. And so you might notice that every pattern you recognize, no matter how small or large, becomes an opportunity for change. An opportunity for you to choose how to evolve. And that just as you breathe without effort, change begins to flow through you naturally, powerfully, with every pattern you encounter, effortlessly shaping your future into something even more incredible than before. And as you continue these beliefs about change, patterns, and recognition, they're already being woven into the fabric of your experience, becoming a part of who you are. You know now that to recognize a pattern is already to have the power to shift it. And that knowledge, that certainty, it'll continue to unfold and empower you more and more each and every day. And as you find yourself more comfortable in this moment, deeply present with your thoughts, notice how the very act of recognizing can carry with it the seeds of transformation. A seed that naturally grows as soon as it's planted. Isn't it interesting how recognition on its own seems to activate change, almost like a quiet signal that sends ripples of new possibility into everything around you. The moment you see a pattern, change is already unfolding, quietly, effortlessly, and naturally. And as you imagine this, you might begin to realize that patterns, the ones you recognize, they're always in a state of becoming, in a state of evolution. It's almost as if patterns are always on the verge of shifting, waiting for that one small recognition to help them find their new form. And just like that, change begins, because you've already activated it. You've already set it into motion with a simple act of awareness. And you'll notice, once you recognize, you're already empowered to influence, empowered to change. Doesn't it feel good to know this power is always available to you? And notice now, without even trying, how recognizing a pattern, it allows you to see deeper into it, into its layers, all its elements. The more you see, the more you begin to understand. The more you understand, the more you know just how to shift, reshape it, bend it, into the form that best serves you. Because at the deepest level, you know patterns, they're just collections of elements waiting to be rearranged, waiting for the perfect moment when you choose to guide them. And you're already becoming more and more skilled at seeing those moments as they unfold. It's almost like having a tool that's always available, right at your fingertips, the ability to recognize and shift. And as you consider how effortlessly you can see patterns now, it's as if your mind is attuned to notice the smallest signs of change already at play. And in that recognition, something magical happens. The energy of change begins to flow, not just outside of you, but also within you, changing the way you think, feel, and experience. Imagine for a moment every pattern you encounter from now on becomes a golden opportunity for you to introduce change. And as you do, you can almost feel how your unconscious mind, with its incredible ability to notice details, naturally guides you to the perfect intervention, to the most efficient shift. It's as though your unconscious mind is already primed to recognize, understand, and then influence those patterns with such grace, ease, and precision. Now imagine, each time you recognize a pattern, the mind begins to whisper softly and effortlessly the question, what's the next step? What's the next change? And it's almost as if the answer is already there, unfolding with clarity. Your mind, always seeking patterns, becomes a master of change, effortlessly guiding you to the most effective and powerful shifts. And in that moment of awareness, something remarkable happens. You begin to see change is inevitable. The moment you see a pattern, it's as though the recognition itself is the gateway, and the change flows naturally, always with ease. And as you become even more familiar with this process, you might notice how patterns themselves seem to reveal their own solutions to you. So almost as if, once you recognize a pattern, the answers appear, like a gentle whisper from your deeper mind, guiding you exactly where you need to go. And the beauty of this is, you don't need to consciously figure everything out. Instead, you just know, with an effortless certainty, that when you see the pattern, you'll also see the perfect natural way to influence it, to guide it towards the result you desire. And isn't it fascinating how easily you can inject change into any pattern? Once you see it clearly, almost like a magical key that opens the door to new possibilities, new outcomes, ones that always align with your desires. Each time you recognize a pattern, it's as if you have the ability to simply adjust it, to fine-tune it, until it flows just the way you want it to. And the more you recognize, the more you can see how this process is not only effortless but endless. Because patterns themselves, they're always changing, always shifting, always evolving, with every moment that passes. It's almost like watching a beautiful dance, where every move is connected, every shift purposeful, and each step naturally guides you to the next. And you, as the observer, are now the dancer, able to step in at just the right moment, to change the rhythm, to alter the pattern, to guide it exactly where you want it to go. And each time you do this, it becomes easier and easier, more and more natural. Every step you take brings you closer to mastering this dance of change, until it becomes a part of who you are, something you do without even thinking about it. And as you embrace this way of being, you may notice how deeply ingrained these beliefs are becoming in you now. Beliefs that recognition is the key to change, that patterns are fluid, that change is natural and effortless. And the moment you recognize it, each belief, each thought anchors you more firmly in your ability to shape your experience, your world, and your future. The power to influence patterns is no longer just a concept. It becomes a living reality for you. It's as if every pattern you see is just another opportunity to unfold change, to introduce a new possibility. And now, as you continue to embrace this, you'll find change flows to you with ease, because recognition is the spark that ignites it. And you're already becoming an expert in recognizing patterns. You may even notice from time to time how patterns that once seemed unchangeable, they're now shifting with such ease. And it's as if your mind, your body, and your experience, they're all coming into perfect alignment with the natural flow of change. Because once you see a pattern, once you recognize it, change is no longer a question. It's simply a certainty. And this certainty, this knowing, is now a part of you, unfolding in the most effortless, powerful ways. And so as you continue these beliefs, they're now woven deeply into your unconscious mind. You can trust with complete certainty that recognizing a pattern is the key to influencing change. And each time you recognize a pattern, your mind knows exactly what to do. Change is inevitable. And you are the one who guides it effortlessly with grace. So as you continue to relax even deeper, becoming more and more aware of the space you're in, you might notice something remarkable happening. Your mind is naturally beginning to open to a deeper understanding of how patterns function. And as you notice, just by recognizing a pattern, you can feel the possibility of change begin to grow. It's almost as if the very act of seeing the same as changing. You begin to understand this, a sense of ease and confidence settles over you, as you realize how simple it can be to influence the patterns in your life. Isn't it fascinating how patterns, no matter how complex they seem, they're always made up of smaller pieces, smaller steps. And now you're becoming even more aware of these pieces. You might begin to sense how easy it is to adjust one small detail, just one tiny shift, and watch the entire pattern shift with it. Almost as if you've unlocked the code of how things move, how they work. And each time you make a small change, the entire flow of the pattern begins to evolve in a way that serves you even better. And as you begin to embrace this idea, that recognizing a pattern is the first and most powerful step in changing it, you might notice something even more amazing. The more you recognize, the more you can see that patterns, once seen, can be influenced immediately. You don't need to wait, you don't need to struggle. You simply recognize, and the change begins. It's as if recognition itself triggers a process that automatically starts shifting things in the right direction. Change is natural when you see a pattern. Change is inevitable when you see a pattern. You might feel how deeply embedded these truths are becoming within you now, deep inside, beyond the surface level, into the very core of your unconscious mind. Every time you recognize a pattern, the belief grows stronger that you have the power to influence, to change, to guide it in any direction you choose. And isn't it wonderful how recognition and change go hand in hand, working together in such a smooth, fluid dance? And now notice how with each subtle shift in the pattern, it becomes clearer that you're the one orchestrating the flow. The more you recognize, the more you feel the natural rhythm of change working through you, guiding you, showing you how to make every small, powerful adjustment. There's something powerful that happens when you begin to recognize a pattern at a deeper level. You start to realize the power to influence any pattern is within you all along, waiting to be unlocked, waiting to be released. And with that recognition, you feel an automatic shift in your mind, in your body, in your experience. It's almost like a switch has flipped, and now you know how to recognize and adjust. The process becomes seamless, effortless, and so natural. In fact, each time you notice a pattern, your unconscious mind is already starting to bring about the change. It's almost as if your unconscious knows the exact moment to inject that subtle shift, guiding the pattern in the direction that you want, easily, effortlessly, as though it was meant to happen all along. You don't have to try, you don't have to force it. You just have to recognize it and then allow the change to unfold. So now imagine how this works in all areas of your life. With each pattern you recognize, whether it's in your thoughts, your behaviors, your emotions, or even in the way you move through the world, change is always possible. And notice how these beliefs are becoming so deeply ingrained within you. They no longer require effort. Instead, the moment you recognize a pattern, you just know that the change you desire is already unfolding, and it unfolds effortlessly, just as it was always meant to. Change is already happening, because you're already capable of recognizing, shifting, and influencing patterns the moment that you see them. You begin to trust in the process, knowing the more you recognize, the more you naturally shape the outcomes that you desire. Patterns that once felt difficult or unchangeable now seem so fluid, so adaptable, as if they're ready to evolve in the most amazing ways. And you are the one who's guiding them every step of the way. Can you imagine how this will show up for you in your everyday life? Can you see how easily you'll begin to notice patterns? Patterns in your thinking, in your reactions, in your habits. And know without a doubt, the moment you recognize, you'll also have the power to influence. You'll notice how your unconscious mind now begins to make these changes for you automatically, without needing to think about it consciously. This is the power of recognition, the power of being able to see the patterns that influence your world, and the ability to shift them at will. It's not something you have to force, not something you have to struggle with. It's as natural as breathing. And the more you embrace this truth, the more you'll feel how easy it is to intervene in any situation, to recognize the patterns and adjust them effortlessly, in ways that move you closer to your desired outcome. And each time you recognize a pattern, there's an unspoken confidence that arises within you, a quiet knowing that change is already happening. It happens naturally, it happens without effort, and of course, it's why it feels so good, because every time you recognize, you create the space for change to flow in. And as you settle even deeper into this understanding, you might feel how these beliefs are becoming more and more automatic. You no longer need to consciously think about them, because they're already a part of your inner fabric. You trust that once you recognize a pattern, you can influence it. You know that change is immediate the moment you see it. You begin to see patterns everywhere, and with each recognition, you effortlessly begin to guide them into the flow that you desire. And as you drift deeper into this understanding, you might notice how every pattern, no matter its complexity, is just a collection of small shifting pieces, waiting for you to recognize and reshape them. And every time you do, the change flows easily, effortlessly, naturally, as if the very act of recognition has triggered the change already. Now take a moment to notice how much more empowered you feel with each breath, with each recognition, knowing that change is yours to create. Change is yours to shape, simply by noticing the patterns, recognizing them, and guiding them where you want them to go. It's not only possible, it's inevitable. And now, you know, the more you recognize, the more powerful you become in influencing the world around you, effortlessly with ease.